Hello and welcome to the Recursion Cafe, where we play games from the discard pile. In today's game of Unmatched, we have Ema on the left and Dan on the right. Ema is playing Muldoon, a 3-move ranged fighter with 14 health and 3 workers who are also ranged, and his ability places traps across the map that stop movement, deal damage, and draw a card. It's a really powerful lineup with 4 fighters with 3 move and ranged. Here Ema is showing us his mulligan, which is 3 schemes and 2 attack cards. It's not a great starting hand. On the right we have Dan piloting the Genie's debut on this channel. Genie is a solo fighter, 3 moves, 16 health with ranged attacks. He has an ability called Infinite Power. At the start of his turn they may discard a card to gain an action. And so Genie has a really unique playstyle. When I first played him, I just did not understand how to play him. I thought all of his cards were pretty subpar. But then the more you get to know his deck, the more you realise how explosive his turns can be, which I think is cool that they've explored that design space. So, we have the opening manoeuvres. We're on King Solomon's Mine, which is a really interesting and unusual map. It's got some tunnels, it's kind of tight in spaces that you don't expect to be, but also has some nice ranged alleys. So here we have an attack into Genie. It is a rending shot into a Prisoner's Torment, which means that Genie takes 2 damage and draws 2 cards, and Muldoon is able to move Genie up to 3 spaces. So now Genie will be starting his turn with 1 card up and 8 cards. And here's where that kind of playstyle comes in with the Infinite Power ability. Because Genie will have spare cards to ditch, here we are. He will discard a card to gain 3 action. Or a 3rd action, I should say. So that's an Imprisoned Wrath, he's ditched that. 3 actions. And the first action is a 3 wishes, which is not really an action. It's a really powerful card, it's Genie's signature. You pick an option, is either draw 5 cards, for the rest of your turn your cards are valued 4, or your opponent discards 2 cards. So for this turn, all of Genie's cards will be value 4. And he's already in range from Muldoon, so he may as well take a shot. It is an I am freed at 4 value into a I've hunted most things that can hunt you. So no damage goes through. Muldoon is able to move each of his fighters up 3 spaces. And then Genie is able to teleport and deal a damage to each adjacent fighter. So it's up to Ema to place his fighters tactically to avoid maximum value from Genie's ability. So here's the teleport, and Dan will just go for a worker and clear 1 out. It saves having to attack 1 later, and he's still in range of Muldoon, so that works out. So he still has 2 actions left. Here's the second attack. It is a 4 value, your wish is my command, into a feint. So 4 value into 2 damage goes through, but the ability does not trigger. And this early on in the game, discarding 2 cards isn't ideal. And it looks like we pass back over to Ema. I think I missed the maneuver there for Dan's first action of his 3 action turn. And so Muldoon starts throwing traps across the map to try and zone off Genie and try to box him in, kind of like hunting him down. So it looks like Muldoon is spreading out his firepower to cover all the bases. Genie can be pretty nifty when he wants to, so it's good to just kind of cover the map and make sure every zone is dangerous. So here we have Genie attacking that worker, and it's a I've made Sultans out of less into a tactical advance. So all of the InGen workers, both of them that are remaining, are able to move up to 2 spaces, but Dan is able to look at the opposing hand and discard a card, which is an incredibly powerful effect. So even if the worker or wasn't defeated, I think that's perfectly worth it. And there is a second shotgun, which is a lot of potential damage, and also a lot of information about Ema's hand there. So he knows what is possible. So it looks like this worker is going to fire back with a regroup into an I've made Sultans out of less. So crucially, Dan gets to look at Ema's hand, discard another card first, and then Ema will draw a card from the regroup, which is a nice little bait, as well as just more card drawing information that Dan doesn't know. Dan decides to take a leap away out of Ema's hand, which is one of Muldoon's precious 4 value defenses. So I think that's a pretty good pick, to be honest. And there is a maneuver away and an actual regroup, I suppose, if you want to call it that. So we have further maneuvers. Dan is up to 6 cards in hand. Genie really wants a lot of cards in hand and try to kind of trick more cards into his hand through his defense cards so that he can start his turn with a really big punch. But Ema is just taking it nice and easy and moving around, getting his own hand count up as well. So here's an attack into a worker. It is a Your Wish is My Command. Dan could discard 2 cards to gain an action, but at this point it doesn't seem greatly worth it. So it's just another worker down. Ema didn't play defense, so no card down there. There is a move into a trap placement, which I'm not sure is entirely legal, but there we go. It is a second shot into a Prisoner's Torment. So Ema can boost it, but that will give Genie loads more cards. At the moment he's doing 1 damage and giving him 1 card. And I think it's a pretty smart call just to leave it there. So currently health is 12 to Muldoon and 13 on Genie's part, so it's still pretty even. But it's pretty early on in this game. So here's another attack into the worker, and no defense, and it's a grant you death, a nice small value card that would have dealt the damage through with the effect, regardless, unless it was cancelled. So now we have 4 traps on the board. Genie hasn't hit a single one, that is the 5th trap. So slowly and surely, Ema's covering the board and kind of restricting Genie's avenues. So Genie's gonna have to either hit some traps or find a way in. So here's a call for backup, which, like, the existence of this card made me wonder why Dan was going for the workers, because there are 2 call for backups in Muldoon's deck, and just being able to summon all of those back again means that all of those attack cards were not wasted, but the value wasn't really there. I think Ema declines to draw cards or place more traps, so it was just for the recall of the workers. At this point, Genie discards a card and gets 3 actions. The first action, which is not an action, is another 3 wishes. Last time he changed all the values to 4, and it looks like he's going to do that again. It's a really powerful card because it makes, effect, because it makes a lot of Genie cards just hit way harder. Adds another one into a worker, and it's a wishing for more wishes, which means the opponent draws 1 card, Dan draws 3 cards. This is just a really cool card, I think, overall, that one. Secondly, attacking another worker, perhaps just kind of relying on the fact that Ema isn't going to defend. It's an I Am Freed, which means Genie gets to teleport through this minefield of traps next to Muldoon's worker and himself, and deal damage to both. So everything I said earlier about clearing out the workers, that seems pretty efficient, to be honest. So that was 1, 2. I think Dan has 1 more attack, or 1 more action, and is a full value, this is no parlor trick, into a leap away. So no damage, originally no damage done, but no parlor trick makes leap away a value 2 instead. And so 2 damage does get through over the leap away. And that means that Muldoon did not win the combat, so he does not get to leap away. So all in all, really powerful turn from Dan there, clearing out 3 workers and dealing some damage through to Muldoon and preventing him from running away. So Ema goes ahead and plays his second call for backup. So again, bringing all of those InGen workers back is pretty likely. And at this point, drawing 2 cards I don't think is the worst thing. He decides to place some traps and really try to lock Genie into this corner of the map. He's surrounded by workers and traps, and it's not looking great for Genie. And here's an attack. For the second action, it is Muldoon. They should all be destroyed into a feint. So it would have been a 7 or an 8, but it's feinted, so it's just 2 damage to Genie. So Genie steps on the first trap because I think he just has to start making moves and get out of there. And just double maneuvers. Back up to 5 cards in hand. Muldoon takes a maneuver, and his worker is tactically advanced. Well, just the 1 so far. And it looks like the worker is taking a shot into Genie, and it's feinted. So it's a regroup, would have drawn a card, drew out a feint from Genie, which is pretty good. So I don't think Ema was terribly upset that didn't go through. So currently 9 health on Muldoon's side, 10 health to Genie, still looking reasonably even. Ema has run out of worker recursion, so if those workers die, that is it, they're all gone. And I think most of the traps have been used. There's a discard of a remote detonation from Ema's side. So it looks like Dan just kind of runs into two traps to make Muldoon draw two cards and then stays at the far end of the map, kind of saying, come at me to Muldoon and forcing the issue. So Muldoon sends two of his workers across the map through the tunnels and attacks, and it's a rending shot into a back in the lab. So functionally, Genie heals 1, because he takes 3 damage and heals 4, and then Ema is able to move Genie up to 3 spaces. He cannot move through his own fighter, so unfortunately he can't send it through the tunnels that way. And there's a discard down to hand size, which is a remote detonation and a feint for Ema. Discarding a feint means either he doesn't think the Genie effects left are very good, or he's just got really good cards in hand. So here's an attack. It is a careful what you wish for into a tactical advance, so 1 damage through, and just taking down a worker. So that worker is permanently gone. It does feel bad sending a 4 attack in, but then it was needed, clearly, so the ends justify the means there. Muldoon is still on the other side of the map, surrounded by traps, and he's blocked off the secret tunnels, so this is pretty rough. This is another rending shot into a back in the lab, so again, 1 health gain, and Ema is able to move Genie up to 3 spaces. His worker isn't blocking the secret tunnel anymore, so I think he will send him through into a trap. There we go. And Muldoon is able to take a shot now, and you can swing a little bit harder. There's another they should all be destroyed into a feint, and so again, just 2 damage through, as opposed to potentially much more, since he's surrounded by so many traps. And so here's a discard by the Genie for 3 actions. There's a maneuver for the first one. I'll just take a moment now to say thanks to both players for making the actions very clear for the camera. They did hand gestures and everything, it was great. And here is a 4 value, I've hunted most things that can hunt you, into a careful what you wish for. So ordinarily that would totally work for the careful what you wish for, it will deal a damage, but crucially it says adjacent fighter and the defender resolves first, so Muldoon is able to move away before that fires. A lot of those kind of effects on Genie's cards are why I kept on forgetting the first couple times I played him that he's a ranged fighter, just because he has so many adjacent card abilities. So Genie runs into another trap and sits pretty on 4 cards. His deck is looking pretty thin though, which is just a massive byproduct of all of his effects. The tactical advance into a back in the lap, so again Genie recovers net 1 health and is back up to 7 against Muldoon's 9. Muldoon not having taken any damage in the last 5 minutes or so. So tactical advance lets the workers move. Is that an option Ema's going to take? Ema looks like he only has 3 cards left in deck, but Genie maybe only 1 or 2. So it's really coming down to the wire, and Genie decides the most efficient way is to just force Muldoon to draw cards, which is a pretty nice mechanic in the InGen workers kind of deck. So here is a careful what you wish for into a leap away. Again, the ability wasn't going to fire, and now Muldoon is able to move Genie wherever he wishes because he wants combat. What follows is Ema taking about 1 minute and 20 seconds in real time to decide where to put Genie. But when things come down to it at this kind of stage in the game, it is very important. So it's definitely worth taking the time and making sure you don't regret a decision later. A worker attacks and it's just a feint. Dan feels like he can let that one through. I think all the big values are gone, so it's not much left that could do significant damage to Genie. Here is a Genie ability fire, so that's 3 actions. Coming down to the end game, that's the deck exhausted. So 3 actions. First one is maneuver. It looks like he can't quite get into range of Muldoon without boosting, so he takes the trap instead. He plays the 3 wishes. I think he wants to go for the 4 value attack, but then checks his hand, which is I think only 3 cards at this point, and decides actually no, Ema please discard 2 cards. So still on 2 actions because 3 wishes gains an action. So there's a regroup, which at this point is definitely a liability, and a shooter, which we haven't seen yet from Muldoon. Here's the second attack. second action, sorry, out of 3 from Genie, which is an attack on the worker, who is perfectly positioned by Emo to block any attacks and weighs in to hit Muldoon, so nicely done. Genie will maneuver next to Muldoon, and that's it. Yeah, I shoot her into a Wishing for More Wishes, means that is game. And Muldoon defeats the Genie, still on a reasonable amount of health. So there we have it. InGen and Muldoon hunting down the Genie eventually on the Genie's home turf. A really dynamic matchup. I think it's pretty rough for Genie, given all of the workers and all the traps that he has available to him, but really well played from both sides. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.